let's check the sound and video. First of all, can you hear me well? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm really a little bit sick today, so I'm self-isolating at home, and I will be drinking a little bit of tea with honey. So I apologize about my shape, and also about my speaking abilities and mental abilities are a little bit down these days. So, but nonetheless, I hope I will be valuable for the attendees, for the other listeners, and and let's speak about sustainable mobility as a part of sustainable cities, because I think we all are very well aware that mobility is a basic need of urban people. It's about everything, how we get to places, how our food, our goods, our purchases gets delivered to our cities and our apartments. It's about emergency responders. It's about our kids going and getting education. It's pretty much about all aspects of our life, first of all, and second of all, as we probably know, in cities of Ukraine, as in many other cities, transport is the #1 source of air pollution and CO2 emission. For instance, we started to work with Lviv this month, and officially in Lviv, 95% of air pollution and CO2 emission comes from automobile transport, from mobility, which is, of course, not sustainable. Okay, let me start maybe with a couple of words about myself, because my speech today is rather not scientific, but I would say observational, based on my experience of consulting, of practical work with Ukrainian cities. So briefly, my background: I started to be engaged in this mobility and urban sector about how many years ago? 15, I think, 2005, 2006, so really a long time ago. And I started as a cycling activist. I lived in Kiev, and I decided to buy a bicycle. And after I got it, I was so happy that I decided to ride it not only for some Saturday and Sunday outings, but also to ride it to work. And I realized how tough it was back then in Kiev to ride a bicycle. There were so few bicyclists on the street, and that when you see another fellow bicyclist, you would wave like "hello" across the street, and he or she would wave back, because it was so few of us. We almost knew everybody in person. And we started to advocate for cycling infrastructure. We started to raise this point, like, oh, why Vienna and Berlin and even Warsaw, why do they have a bicycle path? Why do they have like some cycling policies in the cities, and we in Ukraine and Kiev have zero? And it was interesting point back then, because nobody took it seriously. At city government, national government, we were like crazy guys for them, and the usual answer was, go to the park and ride your bike there. So the governments and the society in general did not really perceive bicycles as a valid form of urban mobility. That has changed a lot since then, and now bicycle infrastructure and cycling is on the agenda of every major city. Lviv, Kiev, Vinnytsia, Ivano-Frankivsk, and other cities, Chernigiv, what else? Even Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, they are building bicycle paths. Some of them better, some of them worse, but we live in a different reality now, fortunately. Okay, I have academic background as well. I was happy to win a Fulbright scholarship in 2011, and I went for 2 years to the United States, where I studied public policy, and my master's thesis was about traffic safety, because that's what was worrying me very much back then, and that still worries me now, along with sustainability. It's about saving people's lives, and the fact that so many people lose their life and health for no reason, and that can be prevented. So as I studied there, I experienced a lot of new forms of sustainable mobility, such as car sharing. That was very popular 8 years ago in the States, 9 years ago and that was not existing in Ukraine. I didn't even know what it is, but I liked it very much. And now I try to promote that in Ukraine as well. So this is a little bit of my background. And since about 2015 or 16, I shifted slowly from non-NGO sector. I was an NGO person, so I was writing projects, getting grants, implementing those projects with teams of other people. We did conferences, we did research, we did a lot of stuff, campaigns, awareness campaigns, etc. But I shifted to consulting and to actually working with cities to help them build that infrastructure and build those policies that prioritize sustainability. And we worked with more than 20 cities in Ukraine already. I think it's maybe even more than 30 already. And what we practically do, we help them solve their transport problems. We help them to design a street, intersection, bicycle infrastructure, public transport networks, things like this. So everything about mobility, of course, with the accent on sustainable mobility. And I'm in that business now. And here I want to start this couple of slides and continue to the topic of sustainable urban mobility and what we have in Ukraine. Can you see it now? Yeah, so our company now is called Oresund. We started it just last year, and we positioned it as a social enterprise. So a company, it's a business, pure business. No, like we're really self-sustainable and we earn money. But our goal is to contribute to Sustainable Development Goals number 3 and 11. And I put it on the screen not only for this conference, it's always on our website, and it's always on our presentations when we speak to cities, to governments, to other organizations. We underline that this is our ultimate goal, to contribute to those 2 Sustainable Development Goals. We have a quite lengthy list of cities that we work with, including some of the biggest cities: Kharkiv, Kiev, Lviv, Vinnytsia. And a little bit of Ivano-Frankivsk as well. And this year we are implementing projects also with financing from the World Bank and GIZ, the German Society for International Cooperation. We have 2 offices now. We have a smaller office in Lviv and the main office in Ivano-Frankivsk, where I am sitting right now, the same city as Volodymyr and other colleagues. And we are based, more practically, we are based on 2 main concepts, fundamental concepts that I want to explain a little bit, because all our projects and all our communication to cities is based on that. First is Vision Zero. That's a Swedish concept about road safety, and the basic idea is that cities and governments should build such systems that there is 0 fatalities on the roads. So the basic idea is to decrease the number of deaths by 10% or 20%. It's good, but it's not enough. Our ultimate goal should be 0 death. And of course, for a country, it sounds unrealistic, but for a city like Ivano-Frankivsk or other medium-sized cities, it's absolutely doable. We have about 10 fatalities, 10, 12 fatalities per year in our city now. And it's realistic to reduce it to 0. And many cities, hundreds of cities in Europe have achieved that. And the second basic concept is sustainable mobility, urban mobility. It is very often shown like this in upside down pyramid. And this photo is from the official city document of Lviv Sustainable Mobility Plan. And it basically shows what priorities the city has when it develops its transport policies or mobility infrastructure. And the priorities here should be not the private car as it used to be, and as it still is. Actually, if you look at city budgets, the vast majority of transport-related money go to repaving of roads, not to repaving of bicycle path or public transport rolling stock or pedestrian infrastructure. but it's wrong. The right approach is to prioritize the less damaging and the most beneficial modes of mobility, which is walking, including accessibility of for everyone, for people with reduced mobility, cycling, and we have a lot of micromobility that is added to that mix in recent years. Then public transport, then taxi and commercial transport, and then private cars. So private cars should be given the last priority, which is basically means they should be not prioritized. And in our consulting, in our projects, we don't do projects that are oriented on improving only conditions for private cars. We do the first three: walking, cycling, and public transport, and then we think about private cars. Okay. What does it mean in more practical terms? It means that this is another picture from another book, but it's basically the same concept, that walking and cycling should be on the top. The cities like Lviv, and they're doing it already, and Ivano-Frankivsk a little bit, they should have policies, and they should invest in infrastructure for non-motorized mobility modes, first of all. Second key point, and it's important not to confuse it and pay attention here. The cities should promote a healthy mix of mobility choices by people. So the division of people into groups, drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, bus riders, it's wrong. It's outdated concept, and we should not do that. And we try to not do it, and we explain to our clients that it's the wrong idea. The right idea is that we have persons or we have goods, and we need them to deliver, to get from A to B. And there should be options for them. For each person or each needs, there should be a selection of choice, like menu in the restaurant, right? Okay, and the city should prioritize the least hurting modes of mobility, such as walking, cycling, sharing, public transport, and should provide negative incentives for private cars. That's basically it. So if you take a look at the average car owner in Lviv or Kiev, that person does almost all their errands, all mobility needs by that car. The logic is, I have the car, so I must use it. I must drive it. So even if it's a small city, even if it's a very small distance, like to go buy some groceries. If you look at an average car owner family in Germany or Netherlands, many of them do own cars. Of course, they are wealthy societies, but they don't use it every time when they need anything. They can use it only sometimes, several days a week, or only one person in the family uses it. Other people go walking, cycling, buses, scooters, etc. So the healthy mix is important. We don't try to to take people out of their cars and take the cars away from people and never allow them to drive them. No, it's okay to drive a car, but it's better to do it only when you really need it. Okay. And yes, this concept also means that the city should provide positive incentives for cycling, walking, and negative incentives for driving cars, such as very expensive parking in city centers, for instance, or absolutely zero free parking. We have a lot of free parking still in Ukrainian cities, which promotes driving. Okay, so what do we have, and what situation do we have in Ukraine? Our cities don't have many things in common, but the things in common is transportный collapse. As you can see it on the mass media, journalists I don't like that word, transport collapse, but journalists like it. Basically, it's a situation when all the city is stuck in traffic jams. We didn't have this in Frankivsk 2 or 3 years ago. Volodymyr would agree with me probably, or other cities. It was like a problem of Kiev, maybe Kharkiv, maybe Lviv, but not our relatively small city. Now it's like an everyday situation, and it's getting worse and worse. It's getting worse in Uzhgorod, Mukachevo, in Rivne, in the small cities like Borispil or Mirgorod that we work with. So I think you all understand perfectly how bad it is for the environment, how bad it is for the economy and for public health. So basically, if a city is stuck in traffic jams every day of the week or most of the days, the city is contributing negatively to each of the sustainable development goals. So because it goes like across everything. People get poorer, people get sicker, and the economy goes down, inequality grows, etc., etc. Some quantitative proof of this. This is a world traffic jam index provided by the global company TomTom, and Kiev is proudly number 7 in the world by traffic jams. And Odessa and Kharkiv are also not far away, number 11 and number 13. And basically, if we don't count Moscow and Istanbul, then Kiev is the worst city in Europe by the duration of traffic jams. That's not the first year that the situation is like this. And why is it happening? And we don't have data for Kiev, but we have a very good study in Lviv. I can share with you if you are interested. But basic facts are, and we can observe it with our friends, that the car ownership is growing rapidly. Like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, only 39, 47% of 48% of, so less than half of families in Lviv had cars. Now it is 60, so it's more than half, way more than half. And the trend is that people are getting, families are getting more cars. Trend number 1. And trend number 2 is that people who have cars, they use them more often. So you see the number of people who use them either every day or almost every day, it's increased, and people who don't use cars on business days, only use them on weekend, has decreased. And that's what's happening, because as people get wealthier, as people can afford the car, they buy the car, and when they buy the car, they use it more and more often.